The message came without warning. Every screen on Earth showed the same thing at the same time. A large alien face appeared, its skin dark red and covered with rough scales. The creature had 4 eyes that glowed like burning coal. Its voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. Admiral Tae-Jin Kim stood in the command center watching the broadcast. Around him, officers stopped their work. Everyone stared at the screens. The silence felt heavy. The alien spoke in perfect English, though his mouth barely moved. Technology translated his words into every language on Earth. His name was War Master Krell, leader of the Draxian Empire. He told Earth that his people had conquered 40 star systems. Now they wanted Earth. Krell showed videos of destroyed cities on other planets. Buildings turned to dust, forests burning, ships exploding in space. He showed these things to scare Earth into giving up without a fight. Earth had 72 hours to decide. They could surrender everything and become slaves to the Draxian Empire, or they could fight and die. Krell made it sound simple. He believed Earth would choose to live as slaves rather than die as free people. Admiral Kim's jaw tightened as he watched. He was 50 years old with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many battles, but he had never seen anything like this. No human had ever met aliens before today. Now the first aliens they met wanted to destroy them. Far away in space, Ambassador Jiwoo Park sat in a strange building made of crystal and light. This was the Galactic Council Station. 50 different alien species met here to talk about peace and trade. Jiwoo had been there for 6 months trying to get Earth accepted as a member. Now she stood before the council again. But this time she was not asking them to accept Earth. She was asking them to help Earth survive. The council chamber was huge. Representatives from 50 worlds sat in curved rows that rose up like a theater. Jiwoo stood in the center, feeling very small. She was 35 years old, wearing her blue diplomatic uniform. Her hands shook slightly, but her voice stayed strong. Council Speaker Venthar looked down at her. He was tall and thin with pale blue skin and large eyes. His species, the Valari, had been peaceful for thousands of years. They forgot what war felt like. Venthar spoke gently, almost sadly. He told Jiwoo that the council could not help. The Draxian Empire was too powerful. Many council members had already lost colonies to Draxian attacks. They chose peace over war. They chose survival over pride. Jiwoo felt anger rise in her chest. These advanced species, with all their technology and wisdom, were afraid. They would rather watch Earth burn than risk their own safety. She spoke clearly, her voice carrying through the chamber. Humanity does not kneel, she said. Not to bullies. Not to conquerors. Not to anyone. If the council would not help, then Earth would fight alone. Some council members looked uncomfortable. Others looked sad. A few looked impressed. But none offered help. The vote was 47 against helping Earth. Only 3 voted to send aid. Back on Earth, Admiral Kim called together the military leaders from every nation. They met in a secure room deep underground. The mood was serious but not hopeless. These were people who understood sacrifice. Commander Haijin Lee sat at the table. She was 29 years old and already the best pilot in the Earth Defense Force. She had dark eyes that missed nothing. When Admiral Kim explained the situation, she did not look scared. She looked ready. Kim told them the truth. Earth's weapons were less advanced than Draxian weapons. Human ships were slower. Human shields were weaker. In a direct fight, Earth would probably lose. But humans had something the Draxians did not expect. Humans knew how to improvise. They knew how to adapt. And most importantly, humans knew how to fight when fighting seemed impossible. Every nation agreed to work together. Old enemies became allies. Countries that had fought each other for centuries now stood united. Earth had only one enemy now, and that enemy came from the stars. Haijin returned to her squadron. She briefed her pilots on what was coming. These men and women had trained for years to defend Earth from other humans. Now they would defend Earth from something no one imagined possible. Her pilots asked questions. How fast were Draxian fighters? How strong were their weapons? How good were their pilots? Haijin answered honestly. She did not know. No human did. They would learn by fighting. Across Earth, people prepared. Factories that made cars started making weapons. Shipyards that built ocean vessels started building space fighters. Scientists worked without sleep to improve shields and weapons. Everyone did what they could. Admiral Kim gave a speech that was broadcast around the world. He stood straight and spoke with quiet confidence. He told people the truth about their situation. He did not lie and say everything would be fine. He did not promise easy victory. Instead, he reminded humans of their history. They had survived ice ages and plagues. They had rebuilt from wars and disasters. They had reached the stars through determination. Now they would show the galaxy what humans could do when someone threatened their home. The 72 hours passed quickly. No reply was sent to the Draxians. Silence was Earth's answer. Silence meant defiance. Silence meant war. In his flagship somewhere between stars, War Master Krell received Earth's silence. He laughed. He had expected fear and surrender. Instead, these primitive humans chose death. Fine, he would give them death. He gave the order. The Draxian fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading toward Earth's solar system. 300 warships, enough to destroy 100 worlds, moved through space faster than light. In 3 days, they would arrive at Earth, and Earth would learn what happened to species that refused to bow. The Draxian fleet arrived at Mars orbit exactly when they said they would. 300 massive warships appeared in flashes of blue light. Each ship was bigger than a city. Their weapons glowed with power. Their shields shimmered in space. War Master Krell stood on his command bridge looking at Earth through the main viewing screen. The small blue planet hung in the darkness, peaceful and quiet. It looked harmless. Krell smiled. This would be easy. He opened communication channels to taunt the humans one last time, but before he could speak, his tactical officer shouted a warning. Sensors detected movement near the asteroid belt, then more movement near Jupiter's moons. Human ships were everywhere, hiding in the places Draxian scanners did not look carefully. Commander Hai-Jin Lee sat in her fighter cockpit, hidden behind a massive asteroid. Around her, 50 more fighters waited in the darkness. They powered down everything except life support. They floated silent and invisible. Her comm system crackled. Admiral Kim's voice came through, calm and steady. All units, this is command. Execute attack pattern Delta. Show them what humans can do. Hai-Jin pushed her throttle forward. Her fighter's engines roared to life. Around her, 50 fighters emerged from hiding. They accelerated toward the Draxian fleet like a swarm of angry hornets. The Draxians saw them coming but did not worry. These small fighters could not hurt capital ships. Their shields would stop any weapons. But the humans did not attack the way Draxians expected. Hai-Jin led her squadron straight toward a Draxian cruiser. At the last moment, they split into 4 groups. 2 groups went high, 2 went low. The Draxian ship tried to target all of them but could not track so many small, fast targets. The fighters fired missiles, not at the ship's hull, but at its weapon batteries. Explosions bloomed across the cruiser's surface. Then the fighters disappeared back into the asteroid field before the Draxians could return fire. Krell screamed orders at his crew. Pursue them. Destroy them. But when his ships moved toward the asteroids, they found a trap. Captain Minho Choi had positioned his destroyer, the EDS Indomitable, in perfect ambush position. Minho was 40 years old, a veteran of Earth's regional conflicts. He knew how to fight when outnumbered. He knew patience. He had waited 3 days in the cold darkness for this moment. His weapons officer, Lieutenant Sora Han, tracked the approaching Draxian ships. She was young, only 26, but her aim was perfect. She waited until 3 Draxian vessels entered the kill zone. Then she fired. Railguns fired metal slugs at incredible speed. These weapons used no energy beams or fancy technology, just simple kinetic force, metal hitting metal. But when metal traveled fast enough, it hit harder than any laser. The first slug punched through a Draxian ship's shield like it was paper. The second slug tore through the hull. The third slug hit the reactor. The ship exploded in a ball of white fire. 2 more Draxian ships died in the same way. Sora fired again and again. Each shot found its target. The Draxians had never fought an enemy that used such primitive but effective weapons. Then something happened that shocked Krell even more. Human cargo ships converted into weapon platforms released swarms of automated drones. These drones had no pilots. They were controlled by computers, and they flew straight into Draxian capital ships, exploding on impact. The Draxians thought this was dishonorable. Warriors should face each other in combat, not send machines to die. But the drones did not care about honor. They only cared about destroying targets, and they destroyed many targets. Dr. Dong Hyun Yoon watched the battle from a military research station on the moon. He was the scientist who designed Earth's experimental weapons. He was 60 years old with white hair and tired eyes. He had not slept in 3 days, making sure every weapon worked perfectly. Now he watched his designs prove themselves in real combat. The railguns worked. The drones worked. The modified missiles worked. Earth's technology was less advanced, but it was practical and deadly. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Draxian fleet had lost 26 capital ships. Hundreds of smaller vessels were damaged. Thousands of Draxian warriors were dead. Earth lost 40 fighters and 2 destroyers. 500 human pilots and crew died. But they died protecting their home. They died fighting back against impossible odds, and their sacrifice hurt the enemy badly. He-Jin flew back to her carrier, her fighter damaged but still flying. She had lost 12 pilots from her squadron, friends she had trained with for years. But she could not mourn yet. The battle was not over. It was only beginning. On his flagship, Krell stared at the damage reports. His hands shook with rage. How could these primitives hurt his fleet? His empire had conquered 40 worlds. The Draxian military had never known defeat. But now, for the first time, Krell felt something he had not felt in decades. He felt doubt. These humans fought differently than other species. They did not follow the rules of war. They adapted and improvised. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation. He opened a channel to his war council. Bring in reinforcements, he ordered. Double the fleet size. Triple it if needed. He would crush these humans. He would show the galaxy what happened to species that dared resist the Draxian Empire. But deep inside, beneath his rage and pride, a small voice whispered. This voice asked a question that terrified him. What if the humans could not be crushed? What if they kept fighting until everyone was dead? What kind of species chose extinction over surrender? The news reached the Galactic Council within hours. Every species in the galaxy heard the same impossible story. Earth, the primitive planet that barely reached its own moon 50 years ago, had fought the Draxian Empire. Not just fought. They had won the first battle. Ambassador Jiwoo Park stood in her quarters, watching news feeds from across the galaxy. Every channel showed footage of the battle. Human fighters darting between asteroids, Draxian ships exploding. The images seemed unreal. She felt proud and terrified at the same time. Proud that her people fought so well. Terrified because she knew the cost. 500 humans died. 500 families would never see their loved ones again. And this was only the first battle. The council called an emergency session. Jiwoo walked through the crystal corridors toward the council chamber. Other ambassadors stared at her as she passed. Some looked impressed. Others looked afraid. A few looked angry, as if Earth had done something wrong by defending itself. Inside the chamber, council speaker Venthar looked shaken. His pale blue skin seemed even paler than usual. He struggled to maintain his usual calm composure. The battle had changed something fundamental in how the council viewed the universe. Analyst Rinva presented her report. She was a military expert from a species that had given up warfare 5,000 years ago. Her people believed violence solved nothing, but now she had to explain how humans used violence effectively. She showed the council detailed footage of the battle. Her voice shook slightly as she described human tactics. The council members watched in silence. They saw things that disturbed them deeply. Human pilots flew directly into enemy fire to protect damaged ships. Human captains sacrificed their vessels to save others. Humans used their own bodies as weapons, crashing drones into enemies. They accepted death as part of strategy. Rinva spoke carefully, choosing her words. These humans do not fight like prey animals trying to survive. They fight like apex predators defending territory. They show no fear of death. They show only determination to inflict maximum damage on enemies. A council member from the Torlian species raised objection. Perhaps the humans did not understand what they faced. Perhaps they thought they could win. Once they realized the Draxians would destroy them completely, they would surrender. Jiwoo asked permission to speak. Venthar nodded. She walked to the center of the chamber, standing in the same spot where she had begged for help days ago. But now she did not beg. She told the council about human history. She described wars that lasted decades, battles where humans fought to the last person rather than surrender, cities that burned themselves rather than let enemies capture them. She explained that humans had a word for this. They called it defiance. The council does not understand, she said. You have lived in peace so long that you forgot what drives some species. Humans will not surrender, even if every city burns, even if every ship dies. They will fight because giving up is worse than death. She looked at each council member. You can hide and hope predators do not notice you. That is your choice. We choose differently. We bare our teeth. We show claws. We make predators bleed. Maybe we die, but we die free. The chamber fell silent. Some council members looked uncomfortable. Others looked thoughtful. Representative Dalmor, whose species the Draxians had conquered, stood up. Dalmor spoke with emotion. His people had surrendered to save lives. They became slaves to avoid extinction. He had supported that decision, but now he wondered if they chose wrong. Maybe fighting was better than living in chains. He proposed sending aid to Earth, medical supplies, information about Draxian tactics, anything that might help humans survive. Even if the council would not send military support, they could send something. Venthar called for a vote. The chamber filled with nervous energy. Council members whispered to each other. Some species had never voted against their allies before. Others had never voted for military involvement. The vote failed. 47 species voted against helping Earth. Only 3 voted to send aid. Fear still controlled the council. Fear of Draxian retaliation. Fear of breaking their peaceful principles. Fear of admitting they were wrong to abandon Earth. But something changed in how council members looked at Jiwoo. Before, they saw her as a representative of a primitive world. Now they saw her as a representative of something dangerous, something unpredictable, something that might reshape the galaxy. After the session ended, several ambassadors approached Jiwoo privately. They could not offer official help, but unofficially they shared intelligence. They gave her access to databases about Draxian technology. They provided star charts and tactical information. One old ambassador, whose species survived a Draxian invasion centuries ago, held Jiwoo's hand. He spoke quietly so others could not hear. Your people remind us of who we used to be, before we became afraid. Show the galaxy that courage still exists. Jiwoo returned to her quarters and sent everything to Earth. The information might help. It might save lives. But she knew information alone would not win this war. Earth needed something the Council could not provide. Earth needed time. And time was running out. Across the galaxy, other species watched and waited. Some hoped Earth would win. Others hoped Earth would lose quickly so the Draxians would not turn elsewhere. All of them wondered the same thing. What kind of species fights when victory seems impossible? What kind of species accepts death rather than slavery? The galaxy was learning that humans were different. Whether that difference would save them or destroy them remained to be seen. 6 days after the first battle, the Draxian reinforcements arrived. War Master Krell had called for more ships. Now 500 additional vessels emerged from hyperspace. The Draxian fleet numbered 800 warships, the largest invasion force ever assembled. Admiral Taejin Kim watched from the Lunar Command Center. The command center was built deep inside the moon, protected by rock and steel. Banks of screens showed data from thousands of sensors across the solar system. Every officer worked with focused intensity. Kim studied the enemy formation, 800 ships, each one capable of destroying cities. Together they could burn every world in the solar system. The odds were worse than before, much worse. But humans had learned from the first battle. They knew Draxian tactics now. They understood Draxian weaknesses, and they had prepared surprises. The Draxians expected humans to defend Earth directly. Instead, humans spread across the solar system. They turned the entire solar system into a battlefield. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid belt became a potential ambush site. Commander Hyojin Lee led her squadron near Jupiter. The massive gas giant provided cover and opportunity. Human engineers had hidden weapons platforms in Jupiter's upper atmosphere. When Draxian scouts approached, the platforms rose up and fired. Hyojin's fighters struck while the Draxians dealt with the platforms. Her squadron had grown smaller. Many pilots from the first battle were dead. New pilots replaced them, younger and less experienced. But they learned fast. They had to. She led them through Jupiter's orbit, using the planet's gravity to increase speed. They accelerated around Jupiter and fired everything at a Draxian carrier. Missiles and railgun slugs slammed into the carrier's engines. The massive ship lost power and drifted into Jupiter's atmosphere, The planet's crushing pressure destroyed it. Near Saturn, civilian mining ships joined the fight. These ships were not built for combat. They were slow and poorly armed. But their crews volunteered anyway. They carried mining explosives and turned themselves into giant bombs. One mining captain, a woman named Bora Kim, drove her ship straight at a Draxian battleship. The Draxians did not consider her a threat. They focused on military targets. By the time they noticed her ship, it was too late. She rammed the battleship and detonated every explosive on board. Both ships vanished in white fire. Engineer Sung-Ho Park worked without rest in the orbital shipyards. He was 32 years old, brilliant and tireless. When damaged ships returned from battle, he found ways to repair them quickly. When ships ran out of missiles, he modified them to use different weapons. He salvaged parts from destroyed Draxian vessels. Human scientists studied Draxian technology and adapted useful pieces. They could not build Draxian weapons, but they could understand how Draxian shields worked. Understanding led to exploiting weaknesses. The battle raged for 7 days. Fighting erupted across millions of miles of space. Every day brought new casualties. Every night brought more funerals. But humans kept fighting. Admiral Kim made difficult decisions. He ordered ships to certain death when necessary. He sacrificed small fleets to save larger ones. He sent pilots on missions knowing they would not return. Each decision weighed on his soul, but he never hesitated. Hesitation meant defeat. On the 7th day, Kim broadcast a message to all human forces. His voice reached every ship, every station, every fighter in the solar system. He spoke simply and honestly. "The Draxians expected us to break," he said. "They thought we would surrender when we saw their numbers. They believed we would choose slavery over extinction. They were wrong. We are not breaking. We are not surrendering. We are teaching them what it means to fight for home." His words spread beyond the military. On Earth, people heard them. Families who lost loved ones heard them. Children who would inherit this war heard them. The message gave them strength. Not hope for easy victory, just strength to keep fighting. Ye-Jin lost more squadron mates. Young pilots who barely knew how to fly in formation died protecting her during a desperate fight near Europa. She wanted to mourn them. She wanted to stop and remember their names. But she could not. The battle never stopped. So she kept fighting. She led surviving pilots against target after target. Her fighter was scarred and damaged. Her body was exhausted, but her determination never wavered. Every Draxian ship she destroyed was revenge for fallen friends. War Master. Krell watched his casualty reports with growing fury. He had lost over 200 ships. Thousands of his warriors were dead. The humans refused to die properly. They should have broken by now. His tactical officers suggested retreat. They could gather more forces and return. But Krell refused to accept retreat. The Draxian Empire did not retreat. Ever. If he returned home without victory, other conquered species would rebel. His career would end. His honor would be destroyed. So he ordered his fleet forward. Destroy Earth. Burn its cities. Make an example so terrible that no species would ever resist again. The entire fleet moved toward Earth in formation. 600 ships that survived the week of fighting. Admiral Kim watched them come. He had one last card to play. One final gambit that would decide everything. He called it Operation Ragnarok. The name came from human mythology. It meant the end of the world. Kim gathered his officers and explained the plan. Many would die. Maybe all of them would die. But if they succeeded, they would cripple the Draxian fleet. Without their flagship and their commander, the Draxians might break. Ye-Jin volunteered to lead the assault. She knew the mission was suicide. Everyone knew. But someone had to do it. Someone had to board the Draxian flagship and kill War Master Krell. Admiral Kim looked at her. She was 29 years old. She had survived battles that killed hundreds. She was the best pilot Earth had, and now she would probably die. But he needed her. Earth needed her. So he gave the order. Operation Ragnarok would begin in 12 hours. Operation Ragnarok began at dawn. Not Earth's dawn, but the arbitrary time Admiral Kim chose for coordinated attack. In space, there was no day or night. Only darkness and the light of distant stars. Commander Hyojin Lee sat in her fighter, leading 50 volunteers toward the Draxian flagship. Behind her fighters came assault shuttles carrying Marines. Captain Jae-won Kang commanded the Marine Force. He was 35, a veteran of ground combat who never expected to fight in space. The flagship was massive, 3 miles long and bristling with weapons. Getting close enough to board seemed impossible. But the plan did not rely on stealth. It relied on sacrifice. Vice Admiral Young-Soo Nam commanded a small fleet of destroyers and cruisers. His job was to keep the Draxian fleet busy, while Heejin's team reached the flagship. He was 52, gray-haired and calm. He knew he was flying to his death. Nam's fleet attacked the Draxian formation from 3 sides. Every human ship fired everything. Missiles streaked through space. Railguns threw metal at impossible speeds. The Draxians responded with overwhelming force. Human ships began dying immediately, but the attack worked. The Draxians focused on Nam's fleet. They did not notice Heejin's small force slipping through the chaos. Her fighters weaved between explosions and weapon fire. 3 fighters died before reaching the flagship. Then 5 more. But the rest kept going. Heejin's fighter took a hit. Her shields failed. Smoke filled the cockpit. But she stayed on course. She fired her remaining missiles at the flagship's hangar bay doors. The missiles exploded. The doors buckled and tore open. The assault shuttles flew through the breach. Automated defenses shredded 2 shuttles. The Marines inside died instantly. But 3 shuttles made it through. They crashed inside the hangar, deploying troops while still sliding across the deck. Captain Kang was first out. He carried a rifle and a determination forged through years of combat. Behind him came 200 Marines. Young men and women trained to fight in the worst conditions. This qualified as the worst. Draxian warriors rushed to defend their ship. They were bigger than humans, stronger and better armed. But humans fought with desperate fury. Every corridor became a battlefield. Every intersection became a killing ground. Kang led his team deeper into the ship. They followed maps provided by the Galactic Council intelligence. The maps were old and incomplete. Some corridors were different. Some doors were locked. But they adapted and kept moving. Outside, Vice Admiral Nam's fleet was dying. Ship after ship exploded under Draxian fire. Nam's own cruiser was heavily damaged. Fires burned on multiple decks. The crew worked desperately to keep weapons online. Nam received reports. Heejin's team was inside the flagship. They needed more time. Just a few more minutes. He looked at his bridge crew. Young officers who believed in their mission. Who trusted him to lead them. He gave his final order. All ships ramming speed. Target the flagship's shields. We are the hammer that breaks the door. His crew understood. They pushed the engines past safety limits. The ship shook and groaned. Alarms screamed warnings. Nam ignored everything. He aimed his cruiser at the flagship and accelerated. 3 other ships followed. 4 human vessels, damaged and dying, threw themselves at the Draxian flagship. They struck the shields together. The shields held for 1 second, 2 seconds. Then they collapsed. Nam's ship hit the flagship's hull and exploded. The blast tore a massive hole in the Draxian vessel. Atmosphere vented into space. Systems failed throughout the ship, and the path to the command center was suddenly much clearer. Inside, Kang felt the explosion. He knew what it meant. Someone sacrificed themselves to give his team a chance. He would not waste that sacrifice. His Marines fought through the final defenders. They lost half their number. Bodies of humans and Draxians filled the corridors, but they reached the command center. The door was sealed. Kang placed explosives and everyone took cover. The explosion blew the door inward. Smoke and fire filled the command center. Through the chaos, Kang saw War Master Krell. The Draxian commander stood at his station surrounded by guards. His 4 eyes blazed with rage. The final fight was brutal. Krell was a warrior who had killed enemies for 50 years. But Kang was fighting for his world, for his people, for everyone who died to reach this moment. Kang emptied his rifle into Krell's guards. Then he drew his combat knife and charged. Krell was bigger and stronger, but Kang was faster and more desperate. The knife found gaps in Krell's armor. Once, twice, 3 times Krell fell. The War Master of the Draxian Empire died on his own bridge, killed by a human he had dismissed as primitive. His last thought was disbelief. How could this happen? Kang planted explosives throughout the command center. He and his surviving Marines ran for the hangar bay. They fought through corridors filled with smoke and fire. Behind them, the explosives detonated. The flagship's command systems failed. The massive vessel lost power. Without their commander and without control, the ship began to tear itself apart. Yejin waited in the hangar with one surviving shuttle. She was wounded, her left arm broken from the crash landing. But she kept the shuttle ready. When she saw Kang and 30 Marines running toward her, she powered up the engines. They launched just as the flagship exploded. The blast threw the shuttle tumbling through space. Yejin fought the controls with one hand. The shuttle spun wildly, but she managed to stabilize it. Behind them, the pride of the Draxian fleet died in fire, and across the battlefield, the remaining Draxian ships saw their flagship destroyed. They saw their War Master dead. For the first time in their history, they did not know what to do. Fear crept into their hearts, and the humans were still fighting. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light. Earth had done the impossible. They defeated the Draxian Empire, not through superior technology, not through overwhelming numbers. Through courage and sacrifice, every species heard the story. A primitive world that barely reached its own moon fought back against an empire that conquered 40 systems. Humans lost thousands of lives, but they won. Ambassador Jiwoo Park received emergency summons to the Galactic Council. She traveled through the crystal corridors with her head held high. Other ambassadors no longer ignored her. Some stepped aside respectfully. Others stared with a mixture of awe and fear. The council chamber was full. Every species sent their representatives. Even species that rarely attended came to this session. Everyone wanted to see the human ambassador. Everyone wanted to understand what happened. Council Speaker Venthar looked different. The calmness was gone. His pale blue skin seemed almost white. His large eyes showed something Jiwoo had never seen before. Fear. Analyst Rinva presented her updated report. Her voice was steadier this time, but her words were more disturbing. She had studied every moment of the final battle. She analyzed human tactics and human psychology. She showed footage of Vice Admiral Nam's sacrifice. 4 ships ramming the Draxian flagship. She explained that the commanders knew they would die. They chose death anyway because it served their strategy. She showed footage of Captain Kang fighting through the flagship. 200 Marines went in. 30 came out. They accepted 85% casualties to complete the mission. Rinva presented her conclusion. The council members listened in shocked silence. Humans possess psychological resilience that borders on irrational behavior. They will accept total annihilation before surrender. This makes them unpredictable and dangerous. A council member from a wealthy trading species asked the obvious question. Dangerous to whom? Are humans a threat to the galaxy? Jiwoo requested permission to speak. Venthar granted it immediately. She walked to the center, standing where she had stood so many times before. But now the council actually listened. She spoke clearly. Humans are not a threat to those who mean us no harm. We fought because we were attacked. We killed because we were forced to kill. We did not seek this war. We only sought survival, she continued. You fear us now. You see what we can do and you worry we might turn on you. But you forget something important. We asked for your help. We wanted to join your council peacefully. You refused because you were afraid. The chamber remained silent. Jiwoo pressed her point. We proved we can defend ourselves. Now we offer the same protection to others. Any species that faces aggression can ask for human help. We will not stand by and watch innocents suffer. Representative Dalmor stood. His species had lived under Draxian occupation for decades. He spoke with emotion. The humans did what we could not. They fought when fighting seemed impossible. They won when victory seemed impossible. Perhaps they can teach us courage again. Other council members debated. Some wanted to welcome Earth immediately. Others wanted to keep humans isolated. They feared human military power. They worried that humans would become conquerors themselves. But the debate was mostly ritual. Everyone knew Earth's status had changed forever. They could not ignore a species that defeated the Draxian Empire. Formal recognition would come. The only question was how quickly. On Earth, people mourned their dead. 12,000 humans died in the war. 12,000 families held funerals. Cities held memorial services. Governments declared days of remembrance. President Mi-sun Choi addressed the world. She was 60 years old, elected during peacetime but tested by war. She stood before cameras with dignity and sorrow. She spoke of sacrifice. She named heroes. Vice Admiral Nam, who gave his life to break the enemy shields. Captain Kang, who led the assault into darkness. Commander Lee, who flew through fire to deliver victory. Thousands of pilots and crew who fought knowing they might not return. She reminded people why they fought. Not for glory, not for conquest, for the simple right to exist as free people, to determine their own future. To reach the stars without bowing to tyrants, Commander Hyejin Lee recovered in a military hospital. Her broken arm healed slowly. But her body was not the real injury. She had lost so many friends, so many pilots who trusted her leadership. She wondered if their sacrifice was worth it. Admiral Kim visited her. He brought her a medal, the highest honor Earth could give. She did not want it. Medals could not bring back the dead. But Kim explained gently, the medal was not for her. It was for everyone who fought. She would carry it for them. Across the galaxy, smaller species watched and hoped. They saw that resistance was possible. They saw that bullies could be stopped. Quietly, secretly, they began sending messages to Earth. The messages asked for defensive pacts, for military training, for protection against aggressive neighbors. Earth had become more than a planet. Earth had become a symbol of defiance, a symbol of hope. Admiral Kim read the messages in his command center. The war was over, but his work continued. Earth needed to rebuild. Ships needed repair. Weapons needed replacement, but they also needed to decide what kind of galactic power they would become. He called a meeting of military and political leaders. They discussed Earth's future. Some wanted to expand human power. Others wanted to focus on rebuilding. Everyone agreed on one thing. They would never let anyone threaten Earth again, but they also agreed on something else. Power brought responsibility. Earth proved it could fight. Now Earth needed to prove it could lead, not through fear or conquest, through example. Through standing with those who needed protection, the galaxy was watching, and Earth would show them what humans could be. 3 months after the war ended, Admiral Tae-jin Kim stood in a conference room aboard a neutral station. Across the table sat Sub-Commander Vrax, the Draxian officer who assumed command after War Master Krell died. Vrax looked different from Krell, younger, less arrogant. His 4 eyes showed weariness rather than rage. The war broke something in the Draxian Empire. They learned they were not invincible. The peace negotiations were tense but productive. Kim demanded complete ceasefire. No more attacks on Earth or Earth's allies. Full reparations for damage caused. Recognition of Earth's sovereignty. Vrax agreed to everything, but Kim surprised everyone with his next demand. He did not ask for Draxian territory. He did not demand their surrender. He asked only that they leave conquered species alone. Let them choose their own path. Stop being conquerors. Vrax studied Kim carefully. He spoke with honesty that would have been impossible for Krell. We conquered 40 worlds. None fought like humans. None showed your courage or your fury. We thought we were strong. You taught us we were only bullies, Kim nodded. Strength is not about conquering the weak. True strength is protecting them. Earth learned that lesson the hard way. Now you can learn it too. The treaty was signed. The Draxian Empire agreed to peace. They withdrew from conquered territories. They paid reparations. Most importantly, they promised to never threaten Earth again. But the galaxy knew this was not really peace between equals. It was acknowledgement of defeat. The Draxian Empire, once the most feared military power, had been humbled by a species that barely understood space travel. 2 weeks later, Ambassador Ji-woo Park returned to the Galactic Council. But this time she came as a full member. The Council had voted to accept Earth, not as a minor member needing protection. As an equal voice in galactic affairs, the ceremony was formal and dignified. Council Speaker Venthar personally welcomed Earth. He spoke with genuine respect. He admitted the Council made mistakes. They should have helped Earth. They should have stood against aggression. Instead, they hid behind fear. They chose comfort over courage. Earth showed them a different path. A harder path, but the right path. Ji-woo gave her first address as a full council member. She spoke simply and clearly. Her words carried across the galaxy through broadcast systems. She said humans did not fight for conquest. They fought for survival. They did not seek to dominate the galaxy. They sought only to live free. But freedom must be defended, and defense requires strength, she continued. Earth offers protection to any species that needs it. We will stand with the weak against the strong. We will defend the peaceful against the aggressive. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Her words resonated across the galaxy. Smaller species, long afraid of larger neighbors, felt hope. They saw that someone would help them. Someone who proved they could win against impossible odds. Within months, 12 species requested defensive pacts with Earth. They wanted military training. They wanted technology sharing. They wanted the confidence that humans showed. Commander Hee-Jin Lee took on a new role. She became an instructor, training pilots from allied species. She taught them human tactics, how to fight when outnumbered, how to use environment as a weapon, how to never give up. Her students came from worlds humans had never heard of before. They spoke different languages and saw different colors, but they all shared one thing. They wanted to learn how to defend their homes. Hee-Jin was 30 years old now. Her broken arm healed but still ached when it rained. She carried scars from the war, visible and invisible, but she found purpose in teaching. Every pilot she trained was one more defender, one more person who could protect their world. Earth itself changed. The war united humanity in ways nothing else could. Old conflicts seemed petty now. Nations that fought each other for centuries worked together, building a better world. Scientists focused on advancing technology, not just weapons. Medicine, agriculture, space travel. They studied information shared by council members. They combined alien knowledge with human innovation. Engineers rebuilt damaged orbital stations. They constructed new ships faster and stronger than before. They prepared defenses so Earth would never be caught unprepared again. Admiral Kim oversaw everything from his lunar command center. He was 51 now, grayer but no less determined. He received reports from across human space, military readiness, alliance negotiations, technology development. But sometimes he took breaks. He stood at observation windows looking at Earth floating in the void. The blue planet that billions called home. The world that proved courage could overcome impossible odds. He thought about the people who died defending it. Vice Admiral Nam and his crew. The Marines who stormed the Draxian flagship. The pilots who flew into certain death. They sacrificed everything so Earth could survive. Their sacrifice was not wasted. Earth survived, more than survived. Earth became a power that the galaxy respected, not through conquest. Through courage, the galaxy learned important lessons. They learned that technology alone does not win wars. They learned that numbers alone do not guarantee victory. They learned that a species willing to sacrifice everything for freedom could not be defeated. But most importantly, they learned about humans. A young species that reached the stars with determination. A fierce species that protected what they loved. A principled species that offered help to those who needed it. Earth proved they belonged among the stars. Not as conquerors. Not as victims. As guardians. As defenders of freedom. As proof that courage and sacrifice still mattered. Kim turned away from the window. Work awaited. Alliances to build. Defenses to strengthen. But for one moment he allowed himself pride. Pride in what humanity accomplished. Pride in those who gave everything. The galaxy watched Earth with new eyes now. Some watched with respect. Some with fear. All watched with understanding. Humanity had arrived among the stars. And the universe would never be the same.